Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume. Hi, this is part 2 of our conversation with Jonathan Groff. Listen, it contains profanity and adult content, so please use your discretion. And if you haven't listened to part 1, you might want to go back and listen to it, or not. However you're doing it right. Enjoy the show. The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content. Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
When you think back on what you've created so far or been a part of, is there a particular thing that stands out of like something you're most proud of?
The first thing that I think of is Looking, for all the reasons that we said, because it was the first time it was like who I was as a person was meeting a creative expression in a really confronting way. And it was a lot of personal stories that became woven into the stories of the show. And a lot of the crew was gay and a lot of the cast members were gay. And there was this kind of openness on set, and the way that Andrew shoots things, he does single takes. And so it just all felt like we were all collaborating and making something together. And then personally, it was incredibly sort of healing and formative. And then on the flip side, I'm super proud of Spring Awakening because it was like everything I ever could, more than anything I could have ever dreamt of as a kid, of being on Broadway and having that experience and just feeling so connected to that material and that group. And then the third thing that I think of is Mindhunter, because it was so technically challenging. Just like working for David is such a very specific.
Will you please, I'm fascinated by this. Will you please, we've talked a little bit about this off mic, but will you talk about what you mean when you say that?
Yeah. So when I had my first meeting with him, he said, you're going to be in Pittsburgh for a year, basically. You're going to work this was for the first season. You're going to work every single day. You're going to watch people go home and come, and you're going to be the one that's there the whole time. And you can't get sick for the entire year, because if you get sick, it's like
you hold up
thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah. And I took him really seriously. And so I became incredibly anal. I'm not an anal person I'm not a organized person. I'm not like that. And I ran 4 miles every morning, even if it was 3 a.m. I would wake up before the Monday call.
Wow.
And I would do the run to clear my head and to not gain weight. so I could stay the same weight through the entire
whole
year.
thing.
I would eat the same thing every day. I would shave my face every morning. And then when you show up at work, just as far as the like work is concerned, you know, my favorite days were the days when we would do the serial killer scenes. And on a day where you interview a serial killer, you show up on let's say it's a Monday at 5 a.m. And from about 5 to 6:30 or 7, you're in a rehearsal with David, Eric, the DP, and the actors, and the first AD. And you sit across the table and you read the entire scene. And you probably read the entire scene like 15 times or something.
Jeez.
And you figure out...
It's just like theater. This is like
Totally
theater.
like
Yeah.
theater, yeah. And you figure out, you move the tape recorder on this. I'm going to put my hands up like this. I'm going to lean forward like this. And it becomes like a dance, like a very specific choreographed dance.
For those of you who aren't in film and television, this amount of rehearsal is very rare.
Very
incredibly
unusual.
rare. And so then we go to the hair and makeup and get ready. And then you start shooting. And
God,
you do like a wide shot.
So excited. I love this fucking show so much.
It's so good.
And so you do like a wide shot, like the wide where you're not even on our faces. And we would do that.
Do the dance.
That single setup, like, I don't know, sometime, like, I think the average was like 20 times. So you're doing the 15
That
pictures
is
just on the wide
unheard
shot.
of.
incredible.
Because David is waiting for us to refine all of the
click in.
moves, to click in, to hear the music. It's like once he would never say something as like frilly as that. This is not what he says, but this is my interpretation of his thing, is like he's sort of, okay, we just, and you know, we get it once and from the wide shot, and it takes that long because the scenes are so long. And then he's like, okay, and then you push in, and then you do it 20 times. And then you start doing coverage, and you do maybe like 10 to 15 different setups. And it's a 9-minute scene. So it ends up taking the course of 2 days.
Are your guest stars like, what the fuck is
Always.
going on? Because
Yes.
it's so unusual.
Yes. They're like, they start to like turn green about 3/4 of the way through the first day. Like, because then David also, I mean, you do it in all these different angles or whatever, and every angle it's expected that you're not like, okay, this is the close up,
Full
so
out.
now I'm gonna give it. No, it's
Full
like
out.
everything is full out, and it's not changing, but he has notes, like pages of notes
This
for
is
the actors.
so unusual.
Yeah, so unusual.
Now, I asked you
Wow.
because Laura and I both fucking love this show. And I had been reading that this was the process.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, is it excruciating? And I was so surprised because you were like,
I live for it.
that's awesome.
I live for it. I live for it. I love it. I love it's so challenging.
Can you
Also,
synthesize pages and pages and pages of notes?
that's the hard part. But once you're sort of done it that many times, at least this is for me.
once
Once you've done it that many times, it's like because he also doesn't want you to play the note necessarily. So it's like layering. I love it. It's almost like ballet or something.
So
it's so
nuanced.
technical. And I find it really meditative. Is that the word? Meditative. I find it really meditative and hard, but in all of the most exciting ways. And David is also so funny, like deeply, darkly funny. So oftentimes when we get into the meat of it and he's giving incredibly specific notes, it's got this sardonic humor that only he possesses, and it starts to like sink into the direction and into the stuff. And even like the first scene we shot with Ed Kemper, our first interview scene
my
between just
God.
the two of us, I was doing all this comedy shtick that we'd agreed on, like moving the pad and whatever, and doing sort of like faces and whatever. And then like halfway through the second day, he was like, let's he was like, I like what you're doing because it feels like real behavior, but now let's just do a couple where you like don't do anything. And it was very like awkward and still and right. And then it felt like Holden Ford. It didn't feel like funny. It still was like, but it took it to this other level of minimalism that felt really we'd taken 2 days to get there, but we got there.
Let me just have a fangirl moment. I know you love all your serial killers equally, but who have you, of the ones that you have worked with and interviewed on that show, who's your favorite?
Oh, that's impossible to answer. It really is. And this is not just like a bullshit
Pageant,
being
fucking
nice.
pageant
a pageant
answer.
I know. They all came to play, and they all came to
slay.
They did. They all came to fucking slay.
I bet they did.
They all showed up like, I'm on a fucking David Fincher
I'm
show
gonna fucking
playing
get
a
the
fucking
Emmy.
serial
That's
killer.
right.
But there's not for the Emmy. It's
No. But you know what I mean. Like
yes.
are.
I'll be in the Emmy award
Those
winning
scenes
episode.
are so. I fucking live for those serial killer
So
interview
good.
scenes.
When they show up, like I can tell you amazing stories about every single one of them, and the way that they approached, and like the way that they played tennis, and the way, they had all of them had done insane amounts of research.
Yeah.
They had their lines down.
You'd have to.
So
It was
good.
like
How about
so.
Cam's? Who's your favorite? He won't say. You say.
I think the Ed Kemper, like the creepiness of, to me,
Oh my
the
God.
payoff was this season when we talk about like having empathy, when you realize you have empathy for that person. I was so creeped out by that. Like more than anything else, I was just like, oh God.
The way they shot that scene where spoiler if you haven't binged it, get on the fucking bus.
But
that scene where he hugs you and breaks your brain.
The hug. It's
The way
too
that was
much.
staged, even
Yeah.
the way that was staged, where all of a sudden, whoop, whoop, he was on the other side of you.
Yeah.
But I want to say I read an interview where you talked about you aren't into like
No.
idolizing
true
these
crime. Yeah.
serial killers, and neither is David. And that kind of like made me love you more because like because it can go too far. You start to see like there's true crime that's interesting, and you are learning psychological very interesting things, but then there's like the glorification of it,
Right.
which goes too far. And I love that you said that. I wondered if you would talk a little bit more about the approach.
That was David. That came from David. So from the beginning, at the first meeting, he was saying, I don't want to do as great as a movie as Silence of the Lambs is. I don't want to do like comic book villain serial killers of glorifying and celebrating them. I want to look at them for the sad, deplorable human beings that they are. And I want to tell this story of the unit at the FBI and how they came to be, and the intricacies of the psychology, and hopefully looking at it in a fresh way by not glorifying what they are doing. And I really love, in the second season, we explore the Wayne Williams, the Atlanta child murders case, and the way that Chris, who played Wayne, and the writers didn't want to vilify him, because the case is, some people think he did, some people think he did.
That's
and
tricky.
so it's like a tricky line to toe of like, you don't want to play a serial killer, but Wayne Williams is a weird dude, unquestionably a weird dude. So it's like playing that person and honoring that person, but not tipping your hat in either direction is such a
That actor's name is
Chris Livingston.
He kills it.
He's so good.
Pun not intended.
But like you said, all of them, all of the acting on the show.
That Charles Manson.
Wait, have you seen? I just discovered this YouTube thing where they put your scenes from Mindhunter with the actual interviews and go
haven't.
side by side. So there's like Charles Manson. It is pretty amazing to watch.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. I'll have
You
to
got to
look
check that out. YouTube.
I love it. I love that show so much.
So good.
But to get us back on track,
That's right.
talk to us about I'm going to use Mindhunter. You gave 3 beautiful examples of things that you're super proud of. What was the original spark? How did Mindhunter come to you? And why did you get such a creative boner when you got 50 pages of audition sides?
I was doing Hamilton, and the email came through of the audition, and it was David Fincher. And that was the first spark.
Like,
because
boom.
I love David Fincher. I had seen all of his movies. I had auditioned for him for The Social Network 7 years before, where like I packed a suitcase to fly to LA. And if I got it, I started rehearsal the next day. And it was between me and Justin Timberlake for the part that he played. But they were like, pack a suitcase for 2 months because if you get it, you start tomorrow.
Wow.
And I didn't get it and took my suitcase back to New York.
You would have been good in that.
And so I'd work, but we worked together for like 3 hours at that audition. And so I had a taste of what he was like. And so Gone Girl was, I think, the last one that I'd seen. And I just like giggled. I just love that movie so much. And so his name, it was like, ooh, that gave me butterflies of excitement. And then I couldn't believe the role that they were asking me to play. It was like a do-good sort of like corn-fed, good-intentioned, like white guy that's like from Ohio, like Midwestern guy.
I recognize that guy. Yeah.
Who ends up mimicking, and this was in the audition material, like taking on the persona of the people that he like mirrors the inmates, like the 8 ripe cunts or whatever that line was. I was like, what? And then the sexual stuff with the girl of like having a sexual awakening while you're interviewing mass murderers in a jail cell and then having a mental breakdown. I was like, this is insanely good. And then the scenes with Ed Kemper that were so long and psychological, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to get this. As I'm dressed as King George in my dressing room, reading it, and I had the sides. I was learning it backstage.
Ooh.
And I wouldn't...
Jonathan Groff to the stage, please.
Exactly. Oops. And I was sitting in my King George wig in my... like that gray, that disgusting, like gray powdered wig and that red outfit. And I was like, it really took a lot of effort to, in my mind, get to that creative space because I was so not Holden Ford at that time. And I was the idea of that seemed so foreign and impossible.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is so good. I have to get my head in the game. And I remember Emmy, who's in the ensemble, would come into my dressing room and I hid the sides under the table because I knew if I told anyone what I was auditioning for, they were going to laugh at me. Aww. The idea that I could play an FBI, dressed as King George in heels. I was like, yeah, tomorrow morning I'm auditioning for an FBI agent. It's like, good luck with that, as playing the king on Broadway. And so I didn't tell, or I remember a moment of being like, I can't tell her that because if she laughs at me, then I'm not going to be able to believe, believe it for myself that I could do this. And I have to like really believe that this is possible tomorrow morning when I go in there to read these scenes. And then I did, and then did the scenes, called a day later, do more scenes, did more scenes. And then that Monday on the day off, I flew to LA to meet with David. And he was like, amazing. The part is yours if you want it. Told me in the room.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
This is a tangent. Here's my mindhunter audition story. Mindhunter.
Who did you audition for?
I'm a Southern governor or something like that.
Oh, I know exactly the part. Yes, the DA, the Georgia DA.
Yeah. There you go. So
first season or second season?
First season, but because of the office that casts that, they do a lot of stuff in the Marvel universe. Oh. And I got it into my head. Like when you go to that office for whether it's Mindhunter or something in the Marvel universe, you sign a lot of non-disclosure agreements. Somehow I got it in my head that Mindhunter was in the Marvel universe. That Mindhunter was a superhero.
That would make sense.
Was a superhero.
Yes. Like
and
the one that
so
Benedict
I did my audition, assuming it was in the Marvel universe.
God.
Make of that what you will. And then I fully watched the whole first episode, and I was like, when are his superpowers going to be revealed? I was like, it's a little slow. It's a little slow for my taste because I thought it was a superhero show. And then I realized
amazing.
I was completely fucked in my thinking. I was completely confused. And then I went back and rewatched it and I was like, oh, this show's fucking great.
Oh my God.
That
And
is
then it also
hilarious.
explained why I maybe did not book.
It could
You
have
wore
had a
like
little
a bit
something
like a
to
gray blazer with a tall collar that went all the way around.
Did you have
Big
your hands on your hips a
buttons.
I
lot?
thought big butt.
Slicked back
The
hair.
biggest buttons.
Yes.
Oh my God. That's my mindhunter story.
That's so funny.
I love that. So your initial spark, you said something in there that I just want to highlight, which is you had to, in your mind, because you were so in the powdered wig and the red velvet and the ermine collar of King George, you in your mind had to make room for you being able to walk in those Holden Ford shoes.
That's right.
And you really consciously have to do that. And you did it. I love that. I love
I
that.
couldn't believe I pulled it off, to be
So
honest. And when
good.
David came to see Hamilton
After?
after I was cast, yeah.
After is
and
good.
I came out and I was like, I'm about to step out in these heels right now.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of playing King George as Queen George. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, he's gonna see but I've already
Papers
signed the
are signed.
contract.
That's right, you're
bitch.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He loved it.
Buy
He
me
loved the
out,
show.
bitch.
That's right.
Buy me out. You're doing just fine. Here's a question for you. What is one of the biggest challenges or failures that you have faced?
We like to talk about.
Oh yeah.
We really truly like to talk about
How you
failures
process
and
failure.
having.
I
people
remember
understand.
doing the Bacchae in Central Park, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
played Dionysus, the god of wine.
Joanne Acolytus.
Joanne Acolytus
Directed.
directed it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I remember really feeling like I'm good. Like this is gonna be
You were feeling yourself.
really good. I'm in
I am
this
so good.
sparkly leather jacket that has like sequins on it, and I am playing a Greek god. And I start the show. My God. I start the show in like a robe, and then I come out on stage with a suitcase, and I do this like 5-page monologue where I'm like, "Hear me, people of Thebes," right?
Captivating.
In like stage voice, "Hear me, people of Thebes."
Sure.
As I take off the robe and put on tight jeans and a leather jacket, and then I'm like rock star Dionysus, and I was really just like feeling myself, and then we got reviewed.
Do you read reviews?
Yes,
you
I do.
do?
I totally read reviews. Yeah.
Oh shit, what'd they say?
And they were so horrible.
Oh,
And like horrible about the show, and then really specifically horrible about my performance.
do you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember words because I read them all once.
What was the
visceral
vibe?
feeling that you got.
The vibe was like, this guy has no business putting this leather jacket on and these tight jeans and trying to think he's a Greek god.
How did you process
Wow.
that failure?
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, fuck. Okay, because it's
Because you have
with
to keep
theater.
doing. Show's not over. Yeah,
Difference with
keep
theater
going.
and like film and TV is like, and now I'm gonna have to go to that theater tonight.
that's the run beginning.
Right? Everyone else read it.
The run is just beginning.
Yes.
Begins
Yeah.
after the first review.
And I walked on the stage at the Delacorte, and I remember looking because it's such a like huge stadium, and it's still light outside when you start the show.
It's back to that rehearsal room and
Yes.
the lights are still up.
And you can see faces, which is just never my jam to begin with, even when I'm feeling confident.
Yeah.
And I thought everyone here has read the New York Times and knows that I'm horrible in this role.
Oh my God.
And now I have to do a 5-page monologue
5 pages.
and be like, "Hear me, people of Thebes."
hear me, people of Thebes.
How did you process it?
And so I just reached down into my taint and was like, fuck everyone. I'm going to play a Greek god
Got that
for myself.
There you
Big dick
go.
energy.
And the big dick
Yes.
energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just was like, I am going to give this like I'm winning the Oscar. I'm just
There you
gonna
go.
like
I'm gonna Meryl Streep this
I'm
shit.
gonna Meryl Streep the fuck out of this Central Park moment right now. And I laughed a lot backstage. It was also the same season as 12th Night, the really successful 12th Night with like Anne Hathaway and Audrey McDonald. It was like 12th Night and the Bacchae.
That other one.
And so I remember joking a lot with my dresser, Mikey, about like how horrible the show had been received and laughing a lot with the people on the cast. And just like, I so enjoyed being in the park that I just like didn't want to let them, even the audience, to let them take away from the fun that I actually was having doing it. So I had full on shame at the same time that I was like, hear me, people of Thebes.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna make you hear me right now, okay?
That's great.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for people to hear these stories because I think that, especially given everything that you've done, I think it's easy for people to think that it's just a breeze, that it comes so easy to you.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, have you ever struggled with fears or insecurities?
I feel like the big secret that is that we're all bad at all different points of the process. Even when we're shooting, even when we're, and being good or successful is so subjective and specific to any person's opinion about what is good and what is bad. But I've watched movies back or TV shows back where I think like, thank you to the editor, because what I did was so embarrassing.
gift.
It was so embarrassing. And of course they cut out all the embarrassing parts because they actually want it to be good.
Right.
I say that to when if I have access to people who are in like leadership roles, as I leave set on a movie I've done or something, I'm like, please cut away the parts where I look like a shitty hack.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Yeah, it's sort of like at like when you do a photo shoot that's like let's say it's an hour-long photo shoot and it's like
Yeah.
and you look at all I actually never look at the photos,
But you will read the reviews.
but I really will read the reviews. I don't read comments and I don't read like I read like the
comments
whatever
can
5
suck my
papers
dick.
like newspapers
Yeah.
to get a sense of is the show gonna run
Resonate.
or is it not gonna run?
That
Yeah.
makes sense. But what you were saying when you do a photo shoot.
Yeah.
there's
And
like,
you see like all the in-between expressions. Yeah. It's like, that's what every creative process is like. And it's scary because it's like, and then the editor goes in and removes all the weird faces. And then you're just stuck with hopefully the best version of the face that you have. But you have to be bad to get good. You have to, in every process, like even in Little Shop right now, it's like, I know I'm doing the most basic first choice thing because I have to just get my nervousness out and you can see it in everyone, all the seasoned professionals, all the creative team, all of the new people who this is their first big job. We all have a little nervous mouth, like on the first day of rehearsal, like the first day everyone hears everybody sing and the first day we're staging it. It's like no one feels like they're good and we can all be bad in front of each other. And then we can figure out what story it is we're telling. And then we can make that, as soon as we get over the ego of, does everyone think we're good? Then we can just focus on how we're telling the story. And then all it becomes is problem solving.
Did you ever struggle? Was there ever a moment where you were like, maybe I'm just not good, period? Or did you always, because this is such a healthy, I'm going to be good, I'm going to be bad. Like, what an amazing attitude. Did you always have that?
I've always been like a horse, like chomping at the bit to act. I've never I've any sort of nerves that I've had or feeling of self-doubt, like maybe I'm not going to nail this, or maybe I'm horrible as Dionysus, the god of wine. It has been superseded for me by this deep-rooted need. I have a need that I will do if people like it or not. I just need it like oxygen.
And it overrides the fear, the challenge.
It does. Historically, it has.
Awesome.
Historically, it
Very
always has.
awesome.
I just like pull for me is so real.
Yeah.
But even like the first performance of Hamilton, I had one day of rehearsal. I didn't know I was supposed to have a British accent. No one told me that. And I showed up and I was like, King George has a British accent, but like Aaron Burr is black. Like why? Like I didn't understand why.
The rules. What are the rules? Yeah.
No one told me that.
Did you not see it at the public?
Well, the show, it was the week after they opened off Broadway, Brian Darcy James had to leave to do something run. So I did it for the last 2 months at the public.
Oh, shit.
But I was in LA throughout their whole rehearsal and performance thing. And they were all in the drama of when is the show going to move to Broadway?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, Groff will just like figure it out when he gets here. And I was texting them being like, could someone send me like just like an iPhone from the sound booth of like what it is I'm doing? No response. And so I saw the show. I saw the show on a Friday and went in on Tuesday.
And they were like, he can do 10 minutes. He's got it.
He's got it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I learned the song, but I just like didn't know. And Lynn says that when I came out the first day, he was like, it really just looked like you had won a contest to play King George. I was like, you say, it was like I was myself appearing in a king outfit. The price of my love.
In fairness, you had not been prepared.
At all. No, that's when I learned that how amazing that material is because I got laughs. I was like, oh my God, I'm really bad, but it works. My mom could play the king in Hamilton and it would.
Jules would be amazing as the king.
Jules would be amazing in it. But yeah, that I felt like, I felt nervous standing there and I have no idea what I'm doing and I can't move. And I'm just going to walk out there and pretend like I have some idea of what this character is. And then through the weeks, I then finessed it and found my way into it, and watched Barbara videos.
Interesting to hear you say that because I feel like your performance, by the time I met your performance in that show, it was so precise.
Very calculated.
And a great dialect. I was like, oh, Jonathan is giving me a great dialect.
I hired a coach. I was
going to ask, from the moment you heard you needed to have it, did you just like next night you're like,
they never taught me. I think they like I showed up at the rehearsal and I sang the song and Tommy was like, and this is before I'd seen it. I like sang it once for them before I'd seen the show. They staged it with me. They're like, basically, you'll see it tonight, but basically you just walk out here. So why don't you just practice singing and walking and then you stand and you walk. And I was like, okay, you say the price of and it was over and he was like, that was really good. Love the simplicity. Maybe just like you could just, add in a little bit of like accent. And I was like, a what accent? He was like, just like a little bit of a British accent. Just like, it doesn't have to be so. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know from an accent. I don't know how to do a British accent.
You do now.
And then I know how to do like the very specific king accent. So then I hired this lady who I was like, I'm playing a posh. She had no idea what Hamilton was. And so she helped me find this really specific character accent that I started layering in at the public. Yeah. And then I was watching all these Barbara Streisand videos because the big dick energy coming out and doing nothing is really, I found very challenging. Yeah. It's not how I am naturally of like, suck my dick, motherfuckers. I'm just going to stand here and throw it down for you.
Language.
You basically have to come out and be like, not just like, the sound of my voice is
yes, you're welcome. Mm-hmm. You're welcome, everybody.
And Barbara, I was like, oh, it's like Barbara.
Babs.
Oh, and you were like, I'm gonna give you British Barbara.
There you go.
I was like watching this clip of her from the song
like that.
It was When the Sun Comes Out. It was the song she sang When the Sun Comes Out in a special black and white. And she comes out, one shot, no cutaways, walks down. They're like, once again, Barbara Streisand.
This is the gayest thing you've ever
And she, so gay. And she walks out and it looks like she's fucking herself with her own voice.
Oh.
That's a good model for that part.
She's like, when the sun. So I was like, wow. You say, I just was like, I sound, even if I didn't feel like I sounded amazing,
Yes.
I just feel like the sound of, you're welcome for the sound of my voice. That's what the
That
headspace I'd have to
So
get
comes
myself.
contained.
across.
I love it. You've done so many things. I feel like you've been in so many interesting rooms, and I feel like I have watched you just in the time I've known you learn so much and grow so much. And I just wonder if you could give us and our listeners some good creative advice or some advice for life.
I would say I've only learned by doing, by really putting myself out there, by just like being on stage, going for it, committing 100%. That's the only space that I learn in. I even like when I come into rehearsal, I come in off book, or when I go to an audition, the lines are memorized because I can't half-ass it.
Yeah.
To learn. And as far as learning, as far as getting better, I have to be all in, or I can't get it. I don't grow. I don't get better. It's like committing fully only puts me into the headspace to then have growth.
I used to think, I've been thinking about this so much. I used to believe that, like, we'll use film and television as an example, that if I would be sort of light and breezy with the preparation because it was supposed to look light and breezy like a real human being living. And where I have come out, and I know everybody has a different process, is I actually do my best when I really commit, when I really learn the 50 pages, when I am like so inside of it.
Yes.
And doing it.
Yes.
That's where you learn.
It's funny because like Michael Grandage, who's a director that I worked with when we did this production of, they did like a revival of the play Red in LA. And he directs a lot of old plays and a lot of Shakespeare and a lot of previously written work. And his rule, even when he's working with Judi Dench, is you come to the first day memorized. Everyone has to show up off book and ready to play, because there's a lot of wasted time of like, oh, what is it? I don't really know what it is.
You can hide in that.
You can hide
I
in that.
can hide in that.
That's right.
And it's like, know it and then go for it, and then you'll learn all this stuff. It's like what they say in music practice, where it's like, what is it? It's like loud and wrong,
or strong and wrong.
Strong and wrong.
Yeah.
Strong and wrong is the only space that I've ever been able to learn in. It's like I can only learn when I'm fully there. If I'm intellectual, this is like for performing. I can talk. I hate talking about like what the scene is about. I don't hate necessarily, but I would so much rather just put it on its feet and do it, and then have a dialogue about it, as opposed to sitting in a room and talking about the nuances. I'd rather do it with bad first choices.
There you go. That's you chomping at the bit.
Yeah. And then find all the nuances once we're doing it. Because if I get too in my head, this is also for me personally, because I never went to college and I never properly studied acting. Although I did reread True and False, the David Mamet book. And his famous quote that he repeats over and over again is invent nothing and deny nothing. And just say the words to the other person, and that teaches you everything you need to learn about. No sense memory, no backstory, no whatever. It's like, just get out there and start doing it, and the rest will follow. And Joe Mantello, I was talking to him one time in a trailer, and he was saying that when he was doing Angels in America, he had to do that scene as Lewis where he's crying in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And the director, which I think was George C. Wolfe,
Yes,
right, of Angels,
that's
the original
correct.
Angels, he was really struggling. Like, I don't know if I can, like, it just starts and I'm crying and I can't figure out how to get there. Like, I can't figure out how to, like, it just starting cold and crying. And George C. Wolfe was like, you just put your hand over your face and fake cry. Just like fake cry.
Yeah.
And then like it's
you
theater,
cry.
dude. And then like everyone will think you're crying, and then you just do the scene.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh. And then fake crying, and this is why I relate to this, ends up turning into real crying.
Yeah.
And it ends up, for me, unlocking the thing. And in Spring Awakening, when I had to cry over Michelle's grave,
Spoiler.
I started. Spoiler alert! She dies at the
We'll
end.
have to edit that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would cry. I would start at fake crying, and then I couldn't. I like busted something open.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't. Even if I tried not to cry, I would like want to cry thinking about it. Even if I tried not to cry, I would be like, she would just like would release.
Your growth, your learning comes in the experience of doing. And even if you have to fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. Always.
That's amazing advice, because you often hear about people, I guess kind of the opposite of it would be, I'm going to do it after I get it just right and I perfect it and I'm like I'm perfect and then I will start doing it instead of like I'm going to start doing it and through action.
Oh, it's the scariest thing. I sweat hearing you just say it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
You're like,
yes,
but don't I have to learn the? But no, doesn't matter. Just like do it.
Do it.
2 feet.
Do it.
And that includes the homework too. That includes like just learn
the lines.
Your lines. It's so basic, and I struggle with it too. Of like, I'd rather watch YouTube right now than sit here. But the minute I start learning them, it unlocks something. It's like taking that first step to do the homework is incredibly hard.
Yeah,
incredibly hard. But it's essential for me to be free the next day.
Yeah. Is there a creative thing that you know you need to do before you're done?
What do you mean? Done with what?
Just by the end of it, like
she means before
when
you're
it's
dead.
all over, when you
before
look
I'm
back,
dead.
is there something?
She's being delicate. She means before you're dead.
Before you're dead.
Listen,
is there
before
a
you
creative
croak,
thing?
Are you like, yeah, I got to do this thing?
The thing that I keep thinking about recently, I think maybe this thought creeps into my, like I'm 34, so it's the first time I've ever had the feeling of a generation behind me.
Yeah.
You go through your 20s and then you're in your 30s and you're like, there's people around in their 20s.
Oh, look at them.
And I'm not in the young
They're so
group.
little.
Yeah, look at them. They're in their 20s.
Yeah.
They're in that phase.
And I start thinking about the Michael Mayer, what Michael did for me by giving me Spring Awakening. And I start to think about like, it's time for me to start paying it forward. That's like the big creative thing that I feel of like,
what would that look like?
Amazing.
I haven't been able to like, I know that I'm very self-involved right now with the things that I'm working on and that I'm excited about. But when I look at, there's this girl Joy who's 19 years old, who's playing chiffon in Little Shop. And I start performing a little bit for her, like just sort of because that energy is inspiring to me and I want to like give to her. It's like I'm starting to look back and go like, oh, I have a dream of starting an artist colony on my dad's farm for people to create work, but also just like creating opportunities for people. And that's what started to like creatively come slightly at the back and towards the front of my brain.
That
Very
is
cool.
hot. I love that. Here's a question for you. What's it all for?
The pure enjoyment is like the creating is just makes me so happy. That's what it's for me. Like it just provides me so much joy.
I love it.
Awesome. And finally, what is sparking you right now?
The thing that's really sparking me right now, today we had Howard Ashman's sister and partner, widower, in the rehearsal room. Howard Ashman is the lyricist, book writer, and original director of Little Shop of Horrors.
Wow.
He went on to, with Alan Menken, write The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. And he, as I'm learning, first of all, the show, how brilliant the show is. He's such a brilliant writer. And even in the character descriptions, if you pick up any copy of the script of Little Shop of Horrors, the intro and the character descriptions are like poetry. It's unbelievable what sort of artistic integrity he had, and just like brilliance, like raw brilliance. And also, he dedicates the script of Little Shop of Horrors to this guy named David Evans, who died of AIDS in the 80s, because this play was happening in 1982. And there's this sort of like subtle queer, not even that subtle, sort of like fabric to the Little Shop of Horrors. Howard Ashman died when he was 40 in 1990.
Wow.
During the Beauty and the Beast, he like won a lot of posthumous Oscars for Beauty and the Beast. He was just sort of reaching a pinnacle peak in his career, and then he left us from AIDS.
Wow.
And having his sister and his essentially widower in the room, and like, we're doing the Howard Ashman version of Little Shop, we're doing the original version, and feeling his vibes in the space, and it being in New York. And two things about the original production is that they wanted to move it to Broadway, and he refused because he said it's intimate. It's supposed to be in a small theater. We're not moving it to Broadway. It ran for 5 years at the Orpheum Theater.
Wow.
They wanted him to change when they made the movie, change the title of Suddenly Seymour to Suddenly Someone, so that they could give it to a pop star and make it a radio hit. And he was like, I'm not changing it. It's Suddenly Seymour. He had such like integrity as an artist. And so every day we get to show up and not only do the show, but do it in New York in a small 270 seat theater with Alan Menken was there yesterday, and Howard's sister and his widower there. And it feels like all this old school history getting stirred up. And Michael Mayer, our director, saw it at the Orpheum back in the day. And there's all this kind of like synergy and magic in the room related to him and his sort of legend and legacy that's like lighting me on fire so hard. And so it's that coupled with like singing with a plant puppet is just insane, because there's something about a puppet that you know it's not real. Even when someone does like a really good sock puppet, you're like, I know that that's not real, but there is some type of magic happening. Yeah. When you watch like the Muppets or Sesame Street, you're like, that's a real, I know, but that feels real. There's like I leave my body when I am singing with the puppet. I feel like I'm singing with the real plant, and it's fucking insane and it's like mind bending.
Those are good sparks.
Those are amazing sparks. Those are amazing sparks. Oh shit, we have to say goodbye. We want to say thank you.
Farewell.
We love you.
I love you too.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Jonathan Groff.
Jonathan Groff.
That is,
ladies.
That's it.
So good.
I hope that this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen to me. If there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you got to share a creative risk that you've taken recently.
And yes, I'm not fucking playing.
We're not playing.
I'm not playing.
Take those risks or don't talk to me.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Are you in the arena or are
Yes.
you not?
Yeah.
Love that.
There you go.
Are you doing it?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we've got Jonathan's vote. Great. Yay! Be sure to subscribe to this delicious podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. If you like this podcast, share it with people you love. If you didn't like it, just push stop and bury your iPhone and your super expensive headphones in a hole in your backyard. That'll show us.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to chance it. You got to freelance it. You got to put on your tap shoes and tippy tap dance it.
You got to take it
and make it.
Yes.
Yes.
That was so good.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.